A very good evening and warm welcome to my lecture Momanizam bin Abdul Rahman. I'm Jagresan Batu Malay from Faculty Science and Technology semester September 2020. So this presentation is about Enterprise Risk Management SMQR5103 Program Master of Quality Management. Principle of Risk Management. What is risk management? The eradication or minimization of an adverse effect of risk to which an organization is exposed. Risk assessment. Risk assessment and risk analysis of technical system can be defined as a set of systemic methods to identify assets, quantify risk, determine compounds, safety measures, and or human intervention important of plant safety. This is the workflow. So system definition, asset identification, then analysis of accident scenarios, estimation of accident frequencies, consequences analysis and modeling. Then finally we do risk estimation. So between the hazard identification we have scheme for qualitative and qualitative assessment, and analysis of the accident scenario will go all the steps. Risk reduction measurement need to be considered. Accessing the risk. So it's objective risk assessment. So how is like qualitative risk management involve making a formal judgment on the sequences and probability using risk equal to severity times likelihood. Likelihood of harm. When seeking to establish likelihood of harm, the adequacy of control measures already implanted and compiled needs to be considered. Issues considered is actually number of personnel exposed, frequency and duration of exposure to the hazard, failure of service, example electricity, water, and etc. Failure of plant and machinery compounds and safety devices, exposure to the elements. Decide if risk is tolerable. So this is a chart or table to consider risk is tolerable or not. One simple method for estimating risk level and for deciding whether risks are tolerable. Risks are classified according to their estimated likelihood and potential severity of harm. These are the explanation for risk level and action and time scale we need to take. Travel, no action is required and no documentary record need to be kept. Tolerable risk level. No additional controls are required. Consideration may be given to a more cost-effective solution or improvement that impose no additional cost burden. Monitoring is required to ensure the controls are maintained. Next is moderate. Efforts should be made to reduce the risk, but the cost of prevention should be carefully measured and limited. Risk reduction measures should be implemented within a defined time period, where there is a moderate risk is associated with extremely harmful consequences. Further, assessment may be necessary to establish more precisely the likelihood of harm as a base for determining the time for improved control measures. Next is substantial risk level. Work should be not started until the risk has been reduced. Considerable resources may have to be allocated to reduce the risk. Where the risk involved work in progress, urgent action should be taken. Intolerable. It means intolerable. You can't do anything. So the action and timescales work should not be started or continue until the risk has been reduced. If it is not possible to reduce the risk even with unlimited resources, work has to be remained prohibited. Okay, how about risk matrix? This is how I do my risk management for my previous assignment. So we need to, as I told before, risk is calculated severity times likelihood. So this is the calculation for the table. For example, like you need to know from which severity and to which likelihood to ensure which category do you to put inside the risk table. Before this I explained to you whether it's moderate, intolerable, tolerable or not. Okay, risk matrix. I going detail to about this risk matrix. So how does it work? Okay, let's say our severity is 12 and our likelihood is tolerable. So it's like 4 and 12. Tolerable and unacceptable. It can be tolerated, but you can't accept the action that you need to take. So every numbering, every level that you're given is morely like you can accept or you can't accept whether the risk is significant or not significant or insignificant. Okay, let's talk about controlling the risk. Previously in the table you can see there is unacceptable, significant, tolerable and insignificant chart that you can label it using the risk matrix equal to severity times likelihood. So once you get your severity and likelihood, you can start to give them numbering or a risk level of chart, whether you can accept, unacceptable or significant, tolerable or insignificant for current situation or something that you're measuring. For unacceptable, you need to stop doing it until improvement are made. So don't start, you can't do it, it's prohibited. Significant is proceed with caution but improvement highly prioritized. Next is tolerable, okay to proceed but plan to improve. It's okay, you need to have some step to improvise it. Next is insignificant, any improvement is low, so you need to give a priority action for current situation that you need improvise. For all explanation and control risk that we did just now, so this is the main 3 points that you need to um, ensure that you're following for all this risk metrics. First, decide measure to be taken. You need to decide first your likelihood list down and your severity that occurring something to be a risk management. Next is implement them according to the priority. Before you do the graph, make sure you understand the severity of a situation or an action. Next is confirm measures appropriated and work. Last and the final step for your risk management is monitoring and review. What is monitoring? Monitoring is life nature of assessment. You need to monitor by your eyes, your colleagues, your managers and supervisors whether the implantation of an action or a severity is be done in a current situation or in a workplace. Next, possible modification to the procedures. Let's say, for example, as I taken before in my assignment, is about a hospital measurement that be done on pandemic situation. So you need to update a procedure, or you need to downgrade your procedure, or you need to add on a step to make sure it not fall under unacceptable risk or insignificant risk. Next is review. Identify changes to the procedure. Once you've done the changes to your procedures, a step, the SOP, you need to identify all the changes. Identify to your colleagues, your working team, and yourself. The next is possible modification to assessment. Make sure once you've done your monitoring, you can improvise it. So you need to modify before you improvise and make sure everything's done back from the first step. Okay, before I end this presentation, I'd like to summarize all the steps that I ensure before taking a risk management. So first, you need to assess your risk. Assessing the risk, you need to get to know what's the severity, what's the likelihood. Decide if the task, the risk is tolerable. You need to do risk metrics. You need to control the risk. Then finally you need to monitor and review the action that you're taking. Thank you.